Welcome to another edition of More Bad News brought to you by Camel Cigarettes. Remember, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Yes, and repeated nationwide surveys, doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors from all parts of the country chose Camels as the brand of cigarette they smoke most. So why not take the Camels challenge? Smoke Camels for 30 days and see for yourself what a difference this mild tasting tobacco can have on your life. When I looked around as a child, I saw that the people who took themselves seriously in all walks of life across the country smoked Camels. Back in the day, when you looked at the talk show hosts, they all smoked. The actors smoked. The sports heroes smoked. Businessmen all smoked. If you were successful on any level, you were a smoker. Tobacco was excellent for the digestion. It was good for you, and it was great for sex, and it was, of course, known as something that helped people to come together. You sat around and you smoked, and you enjoyed the company of your family and friends. These were the days when the family doctor, our family doctor, Dr. Van Assendel, would come to the house. He would drive up to the house, and he to take care of us when we were sick. And he always smoked. He chain smoked Pall Malls. These were unfiltered cigarettes, really long ones, and he never took them out of his mouth. They would just dangle up and down, as the ash would get longer and longer. And as a child, fascinating, waiting to see when that ash would finally fall. And when the cigarette got down to his lips, he simply took the butt out, put a new cigarette into his mouth, and lit it from the old one he smoked all the time. That was our doctor. So smoking was something that my mom smoked. And I remember her telling me after her first heart attack, the young surgeon had warned her that if she didn't stop smoking, she was going to die. And my mother, so we were sitting around the table in Albuquerque. I used to go and visit, and here she was, they were now retired, and they had sold the house in New York, and they were living in Albuquerque. And I would come and visit, and was sitting and talking around the table, on the kitchen table. We used to smoke, she smoked menthols, Salem's, Newports, and drank black coffee. To this day, I drink my coffee black because of my mother. And she said to me that after a heart attack, this young doctor came to her and said, "Esther, if you don't stop smoking, you're going to die." And my mother said, I said to the young doctor, "And if I stop smoking, I'm not going to die?" Let me explain that I have raised 6 boys to adulthood, and I've lived with the same man for over 50 years. I'm going to die smoking. So I wanted to tell you a story about my mother's abortion. She was married in 1936, in the middle of the Depression, at the end of the Depression, but it was still the Depression. And she got pregnant. And unfortunately, this was a young couple who had a lot of pressure on them. My dad was the only one with a salary. My mom's dad had died when she was 14, so she was raised by her mother, and her younger brother lived at home. So Gittel and George were living at home, and Ella was her English name, and Ella was suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's. And so my mother was burdened with trying to take care of her mother and her younger brother, and she was just married. And at the same time, my dad's mom and dad had owned a small dairy restaurant, which went under in the Depression. And they were living with my Uncle Phil, who was then a child. And so on both sides, my mother's side and my dad's side, there were extended families that needed support, and it was just stretched to the limit. And in this situation, my mom got pregnant, and they decided that it was impossible, that they, so they went looking for an abortionist. Abortion was illegal. My mother said that she got an abortion and it nearly killed her. She nearly died. And as soon as she recovered from that, she got pregnant again. And so she felt that they couldn't do that again. She carried the child to term, and that was my brother, Marty, who was born in 1940, and who died homeless, psychotic, at age 59. He had an absolutely horrible life, and the impact on the entire family was overwhelming. I have two brothers, Marty and then Jeff also died before he reached the age of 60. All of this impact because of a situation where my mother could not get an abortion, was forced to begin a family when it was simply impossible for them to function and cope. It affected all of us for all of our lives. I read in the New Yorker last week this quote, "Anyone who can get pregnant now must face the reality that half of the country is in the hands of legislators who believe that your personhood and autonomy are conditional, who believe that if you are impregnated by another person under any circumstances, you have a legal and moral duty to undergo pregnancy, delivery, and in all likelihood, 2 decades or more of caregiving, no matter the pertinent and potential devastating consequences for your body, your heart, your mind, your family, your ability to put food on the table, your plans, your aspirations, your life." And that is how it was for my mom and my dad and my siblings. So last week, I spoke about the ideas that transform our reality. And I spoke of 2 ideas. In one civilization, you have the earth is considered mother, we belong to the earth. And in the other civilization, the earth belongs to us and it can be bought and sold and owned. This is one idea that resulted in vast differences in these 2 societies. So I wanted to talk about another central idea of the show. An object, like a pack of cigarettes, is understood by how it fits into a tightly woven fabric of reality. We're like the moon, caught in a gravitational field, something larger than we are. The moon would like to travel in a straight line, but the fabric of space-time is warped and it cannot escape. Our thoughts are like that. We see a pack of camels and our thoughts are filled with the cliches that we have heard and have grown up with. All around us, adults smoke. From the movies, we learn the pleasures of mixing tobacco and sex. After a fine dinner, we light up. Everyone knows that tobacco is good for the digestion. Everyone knows that tobacco is good for you. It's all part of a tightly woven fabric of reality and is entirely different. That is entirely different now. Now we see cigarettes as a health threat. Smoking doesn't make you sexy, it makes you smelly, and no one wants you to smoke anywhere near them. Obviously, tobacco has been good for the United States, and the country wouldn't have existed, and the colonies had not had a stable cash crop. But what is interesting is how our perceptions of tobacco were warped and shaped by the importance of the product, just as our perceptions of slavery were warped by the importance of that institution to our economic well-being. So what I wanted to talk about today was another fundamental principle of the show, predestination. Now, I started the show off, I usually tell my students that they didn't have to worry about their grades because my grading system was based on the Calvinist doctrine of predestination. But according to Calvin, works don't matter. Calvin looked at the universe in a particularly very peculiar way. Said that all human beings deserve damnation. Nobody deserves salvation. Everyone is born in sin, reeks of sin, and we all commit all kinds of sin, and none of us deserve salvation, but God, in his infinite mercy, chooses some people, not the majority. Most people are damned, but chooses some people for salvation. And God's uh, choice has nothing to do with your works. So the question then becomes, what is the significance of history? Oedipus knows his fate. He's learned the lessons of history. He wants to avoid this fate, and yet he cannot avoid his destiny, no matter how he tries. So what is the point of history when we're predestined? I want to say a few words about the Iroquois and the war, the French and Indian War in 1756, 1763. First, when the French and the British were fighting for control of the continent, the tribes had choices to make. They could choose to ally themselves with the French. They could choose to ally themselves with the British. They could choose to remain neutral. Later, in the American Revolution, they could choose to align themselves with the Americans. They could choose to ally themselves with the British, or they could choose to remain neutral. It didn't matter what choice they made. All of these tribes would be decimated by the transformation of the continent by the European settlement. And it didn't matter what choices they made. In effect, they were predestined. And I've said this also to give a sense of the incredible genocide that occurred. If you take a look at the United Nations today, Asian nations are overwhelmingly represented by Asian peoples. African nations are overwhelmingly represented by African peoples. European nations are overwhelmingly represented by European peoples. But the Americas, the land of the red people, is overwhelmingly represented by European peoples. The percentage of the population is minuscule. The native population has really been decimated. They in effect did not have a place at the table in modern society. While they have survived, they have not survived as nation states. So it really made no difference what choices, and they made all kinds of choices. Some of the tribes decided to accommodate, like the civilized tribes, the Cherokee in the South, that decided that they would assimilate with the Europeans. They would get lawyers. They would own their land. They would run businesses. They would create a language and have newspapers. They were rounded up in the Trail of Tears and massacred. It didn't matter that they chose this path of assimilation. The Apache chose another path, fight to the death. It didn't matter. And no matter how incredibly good they were at warcraft, they were eventually destroyed. The only tribe really that were not defeated were the Seminoles in the Everglades, and that was because the Americans never could conquer the Everglades. They couldn't get in there. But the point is that their destiny was set. It was predetermined. It was predestined. No matter what they chose, they were going to end up being destroyed. And the question for us today is, is our destiny set, fixed? Is there something that we can do? Is there some way that we can escape the collapse of our civilization and the extinction of our species? And my argument is that our destiny is now set in stone, and there is no escape. That raises then the question of, so where do we go from here? What do we do with our present and our past? And that's a question that I'm going to have to leave for the future discussions, because I have no serious answer for it. But I did want to share this with you this week, and maybe next week we'll take a closer look at the Iroquois and the French and Indian War. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. This is another week of more bad news. Talk to you again next week.